Fair warning, this episode contains content relating to demonic possession, actual crime scenes, and your average amount of dark humor. Enjoy. Welcome to the Murder and Movies Podcast, M&M for short.
Not sponsored.
Where once a week we gather and talk about the darker sides of pop culture, film, and true crime.
Love.
So this is the first one that I'm actually leading that I had to do research to, so I feel a lot of pressure.
So much pressure. If you mess this up, I'll never forgive you.
I know, especially considering it's one of those people that people want to know more about.
Yeah, I've definitely heard of their names, but don't know that much about them. So I'm excited for you to tell me.
Yeah, so if you don't know by the title, we are talking about Ed and Lorraine Warren. They are most famous because of the Conjuring movies, Annabelle, The Nun, The Devil Made Me Do It. All those cases are part of their little investigations that they used to do. But here's the thing. I watched The Conjuring not knowing these people were real until the credits. And then you're seeing pictures of these old people. And you're like, who are they? Oh, they're the real people.
I've never seen any of the movies you've just listed. I'm not a big horror movie fan. I can talk about serial killers all day, every day. But when it comes to scary movies, I tap out. So I'm excited to hear about them and the movies.
Where do you draw the line? What is it about scary movies that you can't watch them? I love scary movies.
I don't know. I don't like jump scares. And almost every single scary movie has a jump scare. And those are the ones that get me. Like the end of Carrie, I almost died just because of the jump scare.
The original?
Yeah.
So we're going to be talking about Ed and Lorraine Warren, the real people, and go over their backstory. I'll introduce you to them and some of their real life cases, that are based on movies. So if you are interested, you can also watch the movies.
Okay, yeah. I'm excited to meet them.
Yeah, 2 of them have movies. One of them hasn't yet because The Conjuring's still making a bunch of money, and they're going to continue to make those movies. And they have a bunch of cases that they worked on, some of which I'm sure you heard of, and you just don't know it.
Probably.
One of which I know you've heard of. You've had to.
I love ghosts, so I'm excited.
Ed Warren grew up in a small town in Connecticut. Both of them are from Connecticut. I've never been to Connecticut. I can't even tell you where that is. Is that near Rhode Island?
I think it's not.
Ed is a self-proclaimed demonologist, and I don't know how you get there. I'm a self-proclaimed demonologist too then. If that's the case, if I can just claim it, I'm gonna claim it.
What's his background? Did he ever go to a church ever?
He saw ghosts when he was 5.
Update, I'm a demonologist. Fight me. I've seen ghosts.
That was pretty much how his whole life started. When he was 5 years old, he saw his landlady who had died that year. And apparently this landlady was a real butthole because she didn't like animals. She didn't like kids. She didn't like anything. He saw her ghost in his closet.
He was probably like, I'm glad you're dead. I'm getting a dog.
Well, see, here's the thing. It traumatized him because the landlady was just standing in his closet looking at 5-year-old Ed and just being just as bitter in the afterlife as she was beforehand. And he refused to go back in the house by himself. His dad didn't believe him. Of course, he's 5 years old. You saw a ghost? Yeah, me too. Probably. I feel like I've seen a ghost.
I definitely feel like that's also the age where you have imaginary friends. And I feel like 5 also isn't young enough to understand the permanence of death. I don't know at what point you're death is a thing, but
I don't know. He grew up in the church, so maybe he was more open to the thoughts of discussion of the afterlife and death. And that brought him closer to the paranormal and the church. And so we'll jump over to Lorraine. When she was a kid, she also had experiences, but she is known as a psychic medium, which, according to psychicgurus.org, mediums will mainly help individuals communicate with the dead. They can tap into the afterlife and communicate with spirits. Psychics also communicate with the spiritual world, but in a different way. These individuals have been given abilities that allow them to establish communication with the living telepathically. Sometimes they receive visions of the future. So yeah, she discovered that when she was also young. I want to say she was 9. She was a child.
How did she discover that?
So I can't remember specifically the story. It was something about she was at school and she was sitting next to a tree and she said that she could feel its roots or something. Like, she could feel the energy from its roots and see this tree. It had something to do with a tree.
But, like, also, okay, so Google didn't exist, right? So how did she come up with that title? Like, how was she like, I'm a psychic medium? Was she just, these words are fun, I'm going to claim them?
She actually denied her abilities for a while. She didn't even know, like, what was happening. She was assuming that what was happening to her, everyone else was experiencing that as well. And so it wasn't until she got older that she was able to put a title to it. And she was like, oh, not everyone has these abilities. And the fact that you tell people that you can see the roots of the tree and feel their energy, people are going to be like,
Yeah, she was probably that weird kid that no one talked to. Sorry, Lorraine.
Ed and Lorraine did not grow up too far from each other, and they met at a movie theater, which I would love to meet someone at a movie theater because I love movies. But he was an usher, and she used to go to that movie theater all the time with her mother.
Hey, cutie, what you up to after this? Want to catch a movie with me?
Well, Lorraine said the moment she met him, she knew that they were going to spend the rest of their lives together.
Because she's psychic.
Or she's a romantic.
That too.
Either way, they did end up getting married, but before then, Ed got drafted into the war. They had met in 1943, so World War II. That sounds about right.
Sure.
And when he came back, him and Lorraine got married at the age of 17 in 1945. They ended up sharing their experiences of the supernatural. Like, he was like, oh, I saw a ghost when I was 5. And she was like, oh, I felt the energy of a tree when I was 9, you know, like sharing experiences. And then they realized, hey, maybe we have abilities that we could use to help people. They weren't originally investigators into the supernatural. They started off like painting haunted houses for people. Like, they would go to people's houses who said that their house was haunted, and they would paint it based on the description. I didn't get the premise of it. I did see some of the work. The houses look super scary. I'm not getting the point.
Wait, so did they paint the inside of the houses?
So the paintings I saw were of the outside of the house.
Okay. So they weren't like going into houses, people who were like, I need my house painted, and they were like, is your house haunted?
No, like a canvas. Okay. They were painting on a canvas of the house as the people described what was happening.
Were they good artists?
It looked, yeah. I mean, it wasn't terrible. They were getting money off of that. So
nice. Did they like approach the homeowners, or did the homeowners approach them? Or like the homeowners like, hey, can you come paint my house? It's haunted, I swear.
I have no clue, because that quickly shifted from them painting houses to investigating houses.
Okay.
I'm not sure where the shift happened, how it happened, but I'm guessing their connection with the church and their abilities, it was like an almost obvious transition that if I'm going into these houses and I'm having these experiences, maybe I can actually help people instead of just painting their homes. Throughout their time, because they started off, like you're talking about, they were maybe in their 20s when they started. By the way, they ended up having a daughter named Judy, who is also in the movies.
Nice. Does Judy have any superpowers?
In the movie, she does.
But in real life, does she?
I have no clue. I think her daughter's still alive.
Hey, Judy, hit us up.
I want to know, because Judy and her husband, they run the organization that Ed and Lorraine started. New England Society for Psychic Research in the Occult Museum. No wonder I wasn't going to remember that.
Oh my God. The BuzzFeed Unsolved guys went there.
Oh, really?
I think so.
Well, that's where they keep all their artifacts from, like, their investigations.
Like the doll, right?
Right.
Oh my God. She is still alive. She's also not that old.
Yeah, and Lorraine Warren died, like, a couple years ago. Really not that long ago.
R.I.P. Hopefully.
I wonder if she saw it coming.
Yeah, I wonder if she's does she lose her, like, psychic abilities once she's dead, or can she, like, talk to humans because she's a psychic medium?
I don't know. I wish I was a psychic medium that I can answer that, but I want to be the psychic medium that only sees good ghosts.
Yeah.
I don't want to see a demon. I'm good. I have enough demons in my life. I don't need to see a real one. They investigated over 3,000 cases. We're only going over 3 of them. First one being one of the most well-known only because of the movies, and that is Annabelle. So in the movie, I don't know, because you haven't seen it, the Annabelle doll looks like
a Raggedy Ann.
Well, in real life, but in the movie, it's a porcelain doll with this braided hair. She looks like done up, and she looks like one of those collectibles that you get, like a American doll, but evil.
An evil American girl. That sounds like all of them. They're all pretty creepy.
Annabelle was a Raggedy Ann doll, which doesn't look nearly as creepy. But it was given to this girl named Donna, who was a student nurse, as a gift from her mother. Like I said, she was a student nurse. She lived with her roommate, Angie, and Lou. They get this doll, and nothing really happens for a while. Then all of a sudden, they start finding the doll moving.
Absolutely not.
But, like, it was very subtle. It went from the doll would be, like, sitting in the chair. They would leave, come back, and be on the floor. So it would be one of those
Like it
things-
fell. Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
like it fell. And then they may leave it in this position. And then when they come back, it's in this position. And they're like,
nope.
Okay. It's those things like, okay, maybe this could have happened. Or maybe I'm, I don't remember how I left the doll. It wasn't anything too over the top until the doll started leaving notes around the apartment.
Okay, my first reaction wouldn't be like, oh, this doll is haunted. My first reaction would be somebody's breaking into my house and messing with me. Did they ever suspect that?
I'm sure they did, but it was just a lot of things that happened that always centered to be around this singular doll that did not happen until they got the doll, that they're like, something ain't right. And something tells me that they must have been religious to go ahead and assume it was possessed, which they had other reasons to assume that. But so the doll would leave notes in a child's handwriting that they would find. Thing other than the notes, of course, in a child's handwriting that really made them question the doll was one time Donna had went to go pick up the doll, and she looked at her hand and it had like red goo all over it, similar to blood. She's a nurse, so she would know. And she said that the doll was leaking blood. It was after that they ended up getting a medium to come to their house to figure out what the freak is happening with this doll. And she was like, all right, I'm sensing the spirits. It's a little girl. She died on this land. Her name is Annabelle. And they're like, cool. So a little girl is possessing this doll. No big deal.
Yeah.
We actually feel sad for this because the little girl died. And she's living through this doll. And her name is Annabelle. So
love that.
Yeah, so that's what the medium told them. And they went with that. And they ended up sympathizing with the doll. And kind of brushing to the side the fact that the doll was leaving, notes in a child's handwriting, moving around the apartment.
I mean, she was
and oozing blood.
She was probably just like lonely, stiff from like just laying there all the time. The blood I can't really give an innocent explanation for, but
Things started to escalate from there. The doll ended up doing some crazy crap that was not what a child would do. So the doll would bang on the door. They wouldn't physically see the doll banging on the door, but they would hear like banging on the door, open it, and there's Annabelle just like, hey, how you doing? I'd like to talk to you about your car's extended warranty. So yeah, that started happening, and the doll ended up targeting Lou, the fiance. So he would wake up sleep paralysis. He would have like sleep paralysis of the doll crawling up his leg, getting on his chest and strangling him
with like little cloth hands, like
yeah, just like that. And he, because it was a sleep paralysis, he kind of brushed it off as, oh, I'm tripping balls because this doll's creepy. But no, he ended up realizing he would have scratches on his chest. He was always feeling like something was watching him while he was in the apartment. The case somehow reached the Warrens. I'm guessing they probably went to the church, was like, hey, we're being attacked by this doll. It's leaving scratches. It's oozing blood. It's grinding on my fiance. Like, we need some help. And the Warrens get a hold of this case, and they come, and they're like, it's not a ghost, and it's not a little girl. It's a demon. Because demons or inanimate objects cannot be possessed.
By a ghost.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's no way it can be possessed. Or by a demon. So it wasn't being possessed by a demon, it was being controlled by one. And the demon was going through the doll to manipulate everything else. In the movies, they explain this too. The way that the demons would do stuff is they would use like that cup. And I want you to focus on that cup. I don't need you to focus over here when I'm actually doing stuff. I need you to focus on that cup.
Like actually?
No,
Okay. Okay.
So I will do things to the cup to make you think it's the cup doing it, when actually it's me over in this corner doing shit.
Oh, okay.
So you ended up thinking, okay, I need to possess this cup and release it. All right, it's gone, so I can relax. Nope. But yeah, so the Warrens come, and they end up cleansing the house, doing their little hocus pocus stuff. No disrespect. But anyway, so they end up doing that, and the roommate's like, nah, my man, you're going to have to take this doll with you because cleansing the house is not going to do it. And it didn't. It didn't work. So they end up taking the doll, and Ed recalls that during the journey, the doll was tripping. They kept feeling like something was off. So they finally get to their house, and Ed ends up placing the doll in a chair in his office. And he starts to notice the same things that the roommates had with the doll falling, moving around, to the point that he's like, this ain't about to happen to me. They end up locking the doll in that glass case that everyone sees in the movies, and I'm sure it's still in that museum. Mm-hmm. They end up locking it up. I know they have someone who comes in regularly to bless the entire room and that thing to keep it in, and that's pretty much the end of Annabelle. It's still in that case till this day. So next case, this is one that doesn't have a movie to it, and I did not even know about it, but it's about a werewolf.
I love it. I'm in. I'm invested. We are both werewolf people with the Wattpad stories. I'm in.
This isn't like a sexy werewolf, though.
Oh, he's tragic.
But he is known as Bill Ramsey, the Werewolf of London.
I love that for him.
Yes. So he was born in Essex. I don't know why I say it because I don't know where Essex is, but if you do.
Essex.
At the age of 9 in 1952, he had an experience where he was out by a garden and he started to feel like a cold chill come over him. And he started to just feel like something overcoming him. And he became really, really angry. He was calling out for his parents. They were like, bro, what's up? He apparently was so angry, he took like a fence post out of the ground and began gnawing on it. His parents were like, F that, and ran into the house while he's outside gnawing on a freaking wood, acting like an animal. He was growling.
I love his parents were like, peace out. Like, me as a parent. Like, me.
They were like originally concerned. They were like, what's wrong with him? And then he took that fence post that apparently the parents couldn't even pull out the ground. And he's at 9 years old, gets out the ground, starts gnawing on it and growling. So that happened when he was 9. I think he needed an ass whooping.
Yeah, if I were his parents, I'd have been like, put it back, or go to your room.
He was still teething at age 9. I don't know.
That's when you like are losing your teeth and your adult teeth are coming in. That's fair.
Okay, yeah, I'll stick with that.
You're just teething.
You're teething. That's all that is. But yeah, so the teething 9-year-old Bill, 15 years later, like nothing happens after that. 15 years later, he's married. He has his whole life going for him. He's doing the damn thing. But one night he goes out with his friends to a pub and the same feeling occurs. Like he starts getting cold. He starts like smelling like a stench. He gets like very angry. And so his friends are like, bro, what's up? He's like, I'm gonna go to the bathroom real quick. Catch y'all on the flip side. So he goes to the bathroom, looks in the mirror, and he says he sees a werewolf in the mirror. And it's him. I don't know what the follow-up to that was.
Is that the end of the story?
No.
Oh,
no.
Okay. I was like,
but
what?
Like, it's a bunch of these like small occurrences that keep happening before, you know, it escalates over the edge. I don't know what you do after that. I'm guessing he left.
I feel like this is just a bunch of really sad mental health issues, and I shouldn't be laughing at all. It's so funny.
This man's fully convinced he is a werewolf at this point, and so he ends up. It was very sporadic the way it was explained. It wasn't, this. It was like, this occurrence happened, this occurrence happened, this occurrence happened, this occurrence happened. And then the Warrens came in. So there was a situation where he was in a cab, and he was getting angry and shaking in the cab and growling. And the cab driver's like, bro, I do not get paid enough for this. Then he ended up, months later after all of this, he was complaining of chest pain, so he went to the hospital, probably thinking he was having a heart attack or heartburn. I would go to the hospital for heartburn. That crap hurts.
That's awful. I thought I was dying when I had it, one time.
Yeah, it literally feels like you're dying. He's there. Same thing happens. This cold chill. He starts to smell a stench. He gets really angry, and he ends up biting the arm of his nurse.
That poor woman.
So the nurse is like, no, that's not going to happen. So they call the police because he is outraged. He is throwing a tantrum.
Tantrum?
Tantrum? I think I had a stroke.
I think you did.
He is throwing a fit in this hospital. He bit this nurse, and so they call the police. The police are trying to hold him, but he is thrashing at them, pushing these men off. And Bill isn't a very big guy.
Does he have a history of drug abuse?
I don't know.
These sound like drug abuse symptoms.
I don't know. That's a very good question, because he would go like long extended periods with no symptoms, and then all of a sudden, like a snowball effect. It would keep happening.
Yeah.
So he's in the hospital. The police are trying to hold him down. He's throwing these grown men off of him because he's not very big. They're able to apprehend him because they tranquilize him like a freaking animal.
Love that.
But the nurses would tell the officers later that while he was in the room, his like shoulders would hunch and he would do like animal-like body movements.
Okay. Sure.
He's really feeding into this whole doggy-like
Yeah.
lifestyle. I wonder if his favorite position was doggy style.
Oh, it probably was.
He would end up voluntarily checking himself into hospitals because he was thinking, I have a mental illness. I need to get this checked out. And the doctors would run tests, x-rays, do all kinds of different things on him. Nothing. He was normal. They couldn't find any sign for why he was acting the way he was. Because it was voluntary, he didn't have to stay. He would be in and out of these hospitals, not sure what was going on. Eventually, this became public information on the news. I don't know how it got on the news. Probably because he's like lashing out at nurses, cab drivers, and acting like a wolf in the streets. Journalists came, they reported on it, and Ed and Lorraine Warren, who are back in the States, see this on TV, and Lorraine's like, we need to help this guy. And Ed's like, nah, this ain't real. We don't deal with werewolves. We deal with demons. He's probably lying. He probably needs help.
Yeah.
But Lorraine's convinced. She's like, no, this is the real deal, Ed. We got to go help this guy. And that was one of the interviews I watched where Ed was like cutting her off so much. Anyway, so they head over to London to help this guy. They see him throwing people. They see his anger, and they're like, yeah, you need to come to Connecticut with us. You need to come back to the States.
See, I wouldn't want to get that man on a plane.
Yeah, that would be terrible.
Like, if he's that violent,
Maybe they just gave him a lot of, like, Benadryl and were like, he's fine.
It's fine.
He's going to have the best plane flight. So they get him to a church back in the States, and they ended up performing an exorcism. At first, nothing happens. Bill recalls that the day before, he, like, in a sleep-like state, was choking his wife. Not in the way that she liked. He was all for this exorcism, but the day that it happened, nothing was happening. He was, y'all are just speaking to Latin to me for, like, over an hour. I'm still here. Nothing. Then all of a sudden, I guess he lashes out. He comes to his wolfy stinks, doing all the stuff. He's doing the things. He's cold, he's stinky smelling, and he's acting like an animal. During this exorcism, I guess it works. I don't know why the first hour and a half it didn't, but while he starts lashing out, doing all these things, they hold him back. They continue with exorcism, and there's really no follow-up after that. Like, literally, Bill just is quiet. You don't hear anything from him in the news. There's no more attacks in London of a guy growling at people. At least for the first 10 years, I guess. I'm sure there's plenty of men nowadays who growl at people.
Yeah, I was about to say, there are people who growl at me just, like, walking down the street, which, like, please stop.
So Bill ends up, I guess, getting cured and living a normal lifestyle from this exorcism, from being a werewolf.
That's so weird.
I guess that's why they haven't done a movie over it, because it's kind of like there was no follow-up.
Like, I went to school with a girl who pretended to be a vampire. To, like, 12-year-old me, like, that was legit. So, like, maybe he just was pretending to be a werewolf and he, like, took it too far.
He was like the horse girl.
Yeah, like, he was joking about it, and then it was like, oh, no, we've gone too far.
Yeah, he went from teething, and they're like, you're acting like a dog. Shit, I might be.
Yeah.
Because he went 15 years after that, nothing. Then 18 months after that last incident, and then something happened. And it's like, it's very spaced out. And I thought werewolves were supposed to shift every full moon.
Yeah.
I feel like we get full moons more often.
It's every month. You get a full moon every month.
There you go. Why 15 years?
Yeah.
Anyway.
I have questions for Bill.
I do too. I want to know what happened to you, Bill. Was your favorite position doggy style?
That's our only question.
That's our main question. But here's one that I know you've had to have heard of because it is an actual big case that people still debate about, and it's the Amityville Horror case.
I've heard of it, but I don't know that much about it, actually.
But it is something you've heard about, which is all that I wanted.
Okay.
So the Amityville Horror case, it is very infamous. And the Warrens, I did not know worked on this case because I saw the movie that what's his face was in, who plays Deadpool.
He's hot.
Yeah, and he's married to
Blake
Ryan
Lively.
Seacrest.
Ryan.
Is his name Ryan?
It's the guy that every straight guy has a crush on. Ryan Reynolds.
Ryan Reynolds. There you go. I knew it was Ryan because I was like, why is Ryan Seacrest coming into my head? That's very random.
Yeah.
So yes, Ryan Reynolds was in that movie about the Amityville Horror, and the Warrens were not. On November 13th in 1974, 23-year-old Ronald DeFeo, I had to put like in parentheses how you say it because I was saying DeFeo. He woke up in the middle of the night, and he went and grabbed a shotgun and went into his parents' room, shot both his parents, went into his siblings' rooms, and shot all his siblings. He had 2 brothers and 2 sisters. Killed his entire family.
What?
Of course, because it was early in the morning, they were all asleep in their beds. And one of the strange things that does come up from this case is that when he shot them and the police came, it looked like it was undisturbed. Like they just all laid there willingly and got shot because he used a shotgun.
Yeah, like those are loud.
It didn't look like anybody struggled. Anybody was trying to like get out of the bed. They were all just asleep, just shot in their sleep. He was convicted of 25 to life, of course, for each charge that he had. Mm-hmm. So he was not getting out of prison anytime soon. But one of the things that he claimed and that was investigated originally was they didn't even think it was him.
Yeah.
They thought it was mob related. I don't know how he convinced them that the mob had done it. I think there was something that was going around during that time that was mob related. And he was like, yep, it was the mob. And the police were originally investigating it as the mob. But then they were like, nah, this was you, my guy. You did this.
Were there mob connections? Like, was his dad in the mob? Was he in the mob?
I know there's an explanation. I just vaguely remember there being something about this wasn't the first time that the mob had attacked a family.
Okay.
Don't know. So he was trying to play it off as the mob had done it. But during his whole trial and case, he ended up saying that he had been hearing voices. And the voices had been telling him to kill his family. The Warrens didn't actually get involved with this case until much later.
Okay.
So he was convicted. He still claimed to hear voices. And not even like a little over a year after this had happened, another family moves in. And they claim to see flickering lights, green ooze from the walls.
Ew.
That's very specific. Why green ooze? You would think it would be like blood.
And why from the walls?
Why green? I don't know. I wonder, did they ever find out, was it like, from Ghostbusters? It's like the green goo from like Ghost.
Did they save some so they could scientifically test it later? I have questions.
Me too.
It was just hair gel.
All these random occurrences started happening in the house. They said that they would feel a sense of like rage come over them that they could not explain. Of course, the family was like, nah, this is not cool because the family got murdered here. And this guy claimed to have heard voices and now all these things are happening. So that's how the Warrens get involved. They're like, hey, they did the same thing that they tried to do with Annabelle. We can cleanse your house. And they're like, no, we need up out of here. There's something wrong with this house. So the Warrens get there and they start experiencing things in this house that become a big topic for why people are against them. Because they would claim outrageous things. Like there was one time that one of the Warrens was standing up at the top of the steps and they felt somebody push them back. And they said it was the most terrifying thing they ever experienced because it felt like a legit person just shoved them. Then they would say, like, they could hear voices. They could hear, like, people talking in the walls. And, like, all these things were happening. And the Warrens proclaimed that it was black magic. That black magic had been used on the land and it was affecting the house. They did what they do. They cleansed it, exorcised it, and that was pretty much the end of the house story. I don't know why it's so... I know one of the main reasons it was so infamous is because the case got a lot of attention just in general because this guy went and killed his entire family.
Well, didn't another, like... They had, like, another person, like, helping them with the exorcism, right?
They had...
went on and, like, killed someone else.
Oh, I don't know about that.
Okay, yeah, I know one of their cases, I think it was this one, they were doing, like, the exorcism of the house, and they had, like, someone helping them who, like, lived nearby, and they, like, the guy was, like, being very antagonistic. It was like, what you gonna do? You're nothing. You're a little punk, all that stuff. And then he, like, left and killed his roommate or something like that. And they were like, listen, you can't convict him. It wasn't him. It was a demon.
Oh, that's the devil. The devil made me do it, which was a different case that we will cover in another podcast.
Oh, okay.
That's like a whole thing. Has its own movie too.
Cool. Okay.
But yeah, that was The Devil Made Me Do It. It was about a little boy that got possessed or something.
Wait, so why the heck does anybody care about the Amityville?
Amityville Horror.
Amityville Horror.
I think it just got a lot of attention because, I mean, this guy killed his parents, his siblings, and claimed it was demons. Then the Warrens, there's a lot of footage of them going through this house having experiences. They have, like, camera crew. Like, it became, like, a big thing. So something I didn't mention in the beginning was that for these cases, the Warrens never charged. They never charged anybody. They made their money through lectures, book deals, interviews. That's how they made a bulk of their money. That's probably why they had a whole camera crew with them. This is one of the few times that they, like, really documented every single thing, and it's one of the cases that the Warrens said was the most terrifying for them. Opponents of the Warrens definitely, because, I mean, you can't go around claiming that people are possessed by demons and all these things, and it wasn't really their fault, and not have people look into that and be like, nah, fam, you're wrong.
Yeah.
So in court, it came out that Ronald had used LSD.
Which one's Ronald?
The guy who killed his family.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the guy, Ronald, who had killed his family, had been using LSD and heroin. He was a big addict. And his wife, because he had been married at the time, had, like, reported that he was very abusive, very just, like, not a good person.
Yeah, so he just sounds like a dick who murdered his family. Like, I feel like there weren't demons, there were drugs. Yeah. Which are arguably demons, but, like, you know.
Another reason for that, because, of course, in the court, they weren't like, oh, yeah, it was a demon. No, another reason that they charged him was he had a very terrible relationship with his father. Him and his father did not see eye to eye. They did not get along. So they were assuming that there was something while he was high on drugs, plus, you know, his relationship with his father, that he may have, that's why he did it.
Okay, yeah. I don't know. That feels more legit.
And, of course, his initial instinct when he got arrested was to lie to the cops and say it was not related. If you're possessed by demons, you're not going to be so quick to come up with a backstory of why you killed your family.
Yeah, I feel like if I was possessed by demons, I'd be like, holy shit, I was possessed by demons. Is my family okay?
And be more remorseful and not so much like, mob.
Yeah.
Mob. And stick by that lie for so long before all of a sudden you change and say that you heard voices.
Yeah.
But like most people who get convicted of murder, Ronald never was alone. Other than his wife that he had after they had a divorce, this man got married quite a few times while in prison.
While in jail?
While in jail, he found love.
Hear me out. You can do better than a convicted murderer. Please do better than a convicted murderer. If you feel like you can't, just don't marry a convicted murderer.
So I'm going to call these women out. Geraldine Gates. They were married in 1969. Then he got with Barbara Pucco in 1944 to 1999. Tracy DeFeo since 2004. And then he died in March of 2021 at the age of 69.
Don't marry convicted murderers. You can do better than convicted murderers. Convicted murderers murdered people. You should not love them for any reason. Thank you.
Those are some of the cases, the 3 cases. There's a reason I chose 3 of them because there's so many details into each one and they're highly investigated. And again, I had to cherry pick information so this podcast wouldn't be 2 hours long, which I feel like we may be hitting over that hour. I don't know. We'll see when this is edited down. Real quick, we'll go over some of the opponents, what they had said. So you had brought up earlier with Annabelle about the thing being in the case and how is it still like cutting breaks and stuff like that. So that was one of the things. They were like, what's the point of this glass case that you keep it in so it doesn't hurt people if this doll can still affect things outside the case? You had also brought this up with the werewolf one. You know, it sounded like he was mentally ill. So that was something else people brought up was, are you manipulating these people's mental illnesses to align with your beliefs?
Yeah.
Maybe they're not possessed. Maybe they need a doctor, an actual doctor with a PhD, not a self-proclaimed doctor. And they're sick. So that is another thing that comes up very often in these cases is you're kind of like taking advantage of these people's like situations. Then they obviously over-dramatize a lot of the things that happen to them because, you know, the way that they made money was through interviews.
Yeah.
Book deals. Different lectures that they were doing. So in order to hype it up, they had to make things sound more juicy than they were. Another thing that was also not working with the Warrens is that they were very vague about the dates and times in which things occurred. It would be like, oh, October, what day? October. Like, what time?
More
3-ish a.m.? It's like very vague details.
Yeah, so like not very scientific, which like is what a lot of people need to believe is like the scientificness and the evidence.
Mm-hmm. And so you had mentioned about the guys who went see the museum and they had told the story about the guy who had taunted the doll and then died or whatever. The guy doesn't there's like no backup story to defend like that actually was a person. Like that person existed. Like it was a real person.
There's like no evidence that he existed?
No. It's just a story that they tell during these tours and they don't have actual proof of who this person was.
Yeah, I also feel like probably some of this stuff of people who go there and experience something is a lot of like aligning their experiences. Maybe the one priest breaks just literally gave out and it just so happened to be when he had the doll with him, like, which is a terrible coincidence, is a coincidence.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of coincidences, so the Annabelle case, a couple years before Donna had gotten the doll, there was a Twilight Zone episode about a little girl that had a doll that was possessed and doing things around the house, being crazy, and there was a character in there named Annabelle.
Yeah, that seems very...
a big coincidence.
Yeah.
Too big of a coincidence. Yeah, that's the story of Ed and Lorraine Warren. There's so much more because you're talking about over 3,000 cases that they did and years, decades of life experiences. Oh, there's so much to talk about, but that's what I cherry picked for this podcast.
Thank you. That was very interesting. I have a lot of questions. Mainly, Bill, what was your favorite sex position?
It had to be doggy.
This is so important. If it's not doggy, I'm going to riot.
It will be something like out of that we wouldn't even think about. They were like, what?
Like some weird kinky one.
Like planking.
Isn't that just missionary?
Maybe.
Okay.
But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast. If you have anything to add, which I'm sure you do, to this case or any of the cases, please comment them below. If you have any suggestions on other things that either one of us should cover, comment them below. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, follow us on Podbean, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, other stuff where you could post a podcast, and YouTube. And yeah, we will see y'all next time. Bye.